Right. So we have a file in case anything happens. So nice to see you, Bernd. And
Good to see you.
thank you so much for accepting the invitation to talk to the iSurf audience for a little bit. And well, first of all, well, I don't need to introduce you. I mean, we are one of the top sailors in the world. You're a fantastic SUPer or supper. How do you
Hmm.
say?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think either way is fine. Yeah.
Either way is fine. Okay. And right. I mean, first of all, how's it going in Maui? I've seen terrific pictures. So let us be completely jealous of the conditions that you're getting these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is always the time of year that things start to pick up and everyone gets very excited. This year, I feel like is one of the most exciting years on Maui to be a windsurfer. Just
Oh,
because, yeah,
seriously?
like yeah, I think so. Like the last couple of years, during the pandemic and stuff like that, there were so many people that travel from internationally to be here for the season, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't be here. So there was all this pent up energy, and so many people wanted to come, for the Aloha Classic, and then for the weeks after and stuff like that. And yeah, there's a real energy at Hokipa that hasn't been there for a couple of years because it's just been us Maui people
Okay, so
by
it's
ourselves.
not just the conditions. You're talking about like the mood and the vibe and the people that wanted to be there couldn't be there, right?
Oh yeah, of course. For me, it's always a social thing. I mean, I wouldn't want to windsurf Hokipa alone, you know?
Well, that's great to hear. So we can all pack up and come. I figure.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I
I,
mean, I'm a
I
very
wish I could,
sharing mentality.
Bernd. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's good. I one thing that struck me when I came to Hawaii, when I came to Maui a few times, actually, it's very welcoming. It's very welcoming.
Mm,
There's no
yeah.
such a thing as extreme localism. If there
Mm,
is localism, it's just on the basis of merit. I mean, people who are so much
right. Yeah.
better, they deserve so many more waves. But there's no such a thing
Yeah.
as localism. So it's really an open place to keep, and
Mm.
it's great to be there. Actually, I
I
have a
think.
little story for you. I
Yeah.
was there in 2016,
Mm,
and this was the big Aloha Classic, the one that
mm,
with huge conditions. And
yeah.
you ended up at the point, and you fell down, and you were going for the rocks. And
Mm.
so I came to rescue your board first of all. And then on the way back, I met your father, and I said, I think Bern is in trouble down there. And he looks at me and he goes, no, 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 he's okay, he's fine, he will be fine. He will be fine. And to be honest, it was the first time for me with such big waves, and so I was a little concerned for you. But he seemed to
Right.
be okay, so I thought, I mean, if he's okay, I should be okay, probably.
Yeah, I think my dad kind of started realizing that he was putting himself into more danger trying to rescue me than he was if he was just hanging out on the beach watching me do it.
No,
And
but
that and
seriously,
that
I was ready to jump in. I mean, you still had your sail, you still had your
yeah.
sail, and you still had you were supposed to come out, so you stayed in the water to
Hmm.
protect the sail. I think I don't know
Hmm.
how, I don't remember how that ended up, but the board was safe for sure.
Yeah, and that was the most important thing, right? That the equipment was safe.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
Okay,
my
so
dad and I have gone through, a journey together sailing Hokipa since I was 8 years old. So that's quite a long time. That's 18 years.
right. I was thinking, Bernd, we do a bit. I mean, we do most of the interview in English, and then for the Italian audience, I'll try to translate you at the very far end. So we do a few
Mm,
questions where I translate. I try to do real-time translation because I mean the English here is okay for many people, but it's not okay for everybody. So I'd
yeah.
like you to to open up whatever you say to the most possible people. I think we have a few guys online. I was checking, not that many, but we have a few. There's like 3 viewers at the moment. Uh, so first of all, a little bit on the Aloha Classic this year. I figure you're not very satisfied because I've seen you go out much earlier than usually.
Mm.
And you are the title holder. I mean, you were the title holder. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
because you
mean,
had won 2021, right? Right. So that
yeah,
must have been disappointing for you.
yeah, for sure. It was difficult conditions, and everybody has, I guess, yeah, that contest that they do where they come off the water and they feel pretty confident that they made their heat, and then they find out that they didn't. And that's the way the competition works, you know.
Right. But is
I've
that
had
is right.
probably just as many heats that I've been like, there's no way that I made that heat. I definitely lost. I sailed like a kook. And then you come in and they're like, oh, you won.
You passed. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
That's
okay.
great, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a
There's
wonderful
always
feeling.
that little bit of emotion when you come out of the water because you have no idea because you cannot look at the other guys real time, no? I mean,
Mm,
unless it's so much on the other side that you've seen that the guy has pulled like three different moves and has got so many ways. But normally you're
yeah.
not sure, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Right. So did the conditions, the very poor condition that were on offer this year, in a certain way affect your positioning and your sailing and your ability to progress through the competition?
Yeah, well, it was funny because the first day that we had competition was very small and light wind, and I had such a great time. Like I went out in that heat and actually probably came off the water feeling better about that heat than I had in a whole bunch of heats that I had sailed out at Hokipa in the past. Um, and it was just a really good positive experience for me, and I probably will remember that heat for a really long time, because there aren't many opportunities that I've had in competition to just show how fun I feel windsurfing is. Like in Cabo Verde, I felt like I was able to rip and have all these, spectacular waves in a beautiful place and focus on like core wave sailing, which I love. I mean, that's my bread and butter.
Right.
But doing all the little freestyle tricks and, adding in overall impression by doing a duck tack or a monkey jive off the wave, like those are the things that I personally enjoy doing every day windsurfing at Hokipa.
Right.
And they're like just little things, but they're things that enhance my joy windsurfing so much that I think that heat was probably one of the most enjoyable heats that I've ever had in my life.
Okay.
And I felt so good about it. And then the next day, I didn't feel as good about it. It was kind of a little bit more challenging for me. And then I lost, and I didn't want to do that. But at the same time, I had a very positive experience this year at the Aloha, and I'm excited for next year.
Okay. So you got out from whom? I don't remember. What was your last hit you were up against?
It was Camille and Graham that beat me.
Okay. Right. And was it light, super light?
Yeah,
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 but
yeah, yeah.
that should not affect you any worse than I mean Camille is super light, but Graham
Yeah.
it tends to be on the heavier side, right?
No, I mean, I didn't have really any problems catching waves or doing the things that I wanted to do on those waves. I felt like I got my scores in. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing. I don't
But
spend
it
a
wasn't big.
ton of time.
It was like average, right, for you? I mean, do you prefer big conditions? Do you prefer like massive waves, or do you prefer to? What's your favorite setup in Hokipa?
I've always said that you have to surf big waves or small waves with equal enthusiasm, you know?
That makes a lot of
Um,
sense.
there's yeah, there's different challenges for both. And the reality of it is if you were to apply it to any other skill, it would be just two sides of one coin. It's like
Right.
you can't just be good at surfing big waves, you can't just be good at surfing small waves. You have to be able to read it both conditions and yeah, find a way to excel in a way that's unique. And I think that probably that was the thing that happened to me in this last heat was I kind of did what I wanted to do, but I didn't really do it in such a way that was unique or different or made it so plain to the judges what I was doing was better. And that's when you start leaving things up to chance. And it's not always possible in a heat to show such a high point of difference to say, hey, I'm doing this and it's special. And I should be rewarded for it with an excellent score. But that's always what you're hoping for, because then that's how you stay safe in the competition and make it to the final.
Yeah. So you mentioned about tricks on the waves, right? Like takas and stuff like that. How important is to have a freestyle background, or to be able to, you know, be a little bit creative in modern day wave sailing?
Well, I think that's just one of the beautiful things about windsurfing, is that it's not necessarily mandatory. You know, you don't have to do the freestyle tricks. I mean, there's plenty of people that I consider to be the best wave sailors in the world, and they don't do takas, they don't do goiters, they do fantastic, amazing, powerful turns.
Can you give some examples? I mean, I have names in mind, but it would be more objective if you.
Well, for me, like, I look at Kevin Pritchard as a guy who very rarely does freestyle tricks in the waves, and almost his freestyle in the waves is almost, you know, only when it's small. Once it starts getting big, then he's going for big aerials and big under the lip turns. You know, Levi Cyber is also kind of going that way. Like, he has the tricks and he can do them, but I feel like when I watch him sail, he kind of prefers not to. Like, he likes to keep his rail in the water as much as possible from the beginning to the end of the wave, because he has so much skill and so much power over the board, you know, and over that rail.
No, he's unique. But although I must say I have a monstrous goiter that I shot of him in 2019, it's really monstrous. It was like,
oh yeah, no, for sure.
And that's like, the thing. 7-foot wave or something, and he was way up above the lip. So he can do it.
Yeah,
it's just a matter if he wants to do it, right?
But I think Levi can do it, you know, in like a perfect, you know, 7-foot wave that really provides that amazing ramp. And then you've got guys like, what comes to mind for me is Takuma Tsuji, who's a Japanese wave sailor who does the freestyle tour and the wave sailing tour. And you can see it in his sailing that he can kind of do a goiter anywhere on the wave, whether it's a small wave, a big wave, a good section, or a mushy one. Like, he has such an amazing freestyle skill that he can fit that maneuver in any place. And that's really cool, because it shows that windsurfing is this wonderful balance where you can be almost 100% a surfer, or you can be 100% just riding the wind, and your board is almost just skipping like a stone over the water. And it's kind of your choice whether or not you want to play with the water or if you want to play with the wind. You can do both. You can find a balance. I'm always kind of trying to find that balance. But you see it on different sides of different windsurfers, that they're always either playing in the wind or playing in the water.
So it's more power or control, no? I mean, when you go with the wave, it's more like surfing. So it's control. And when you let, for instance, I stand on the wind side. I like it to be windy. I love South Africa, no? Because it's pushing so hard. And but it's a completely different, I agree, it's a completely different wave sailing. I mean, being able to read the wave is actually the trick, no? The master trick, probably.
I mean, for me, it was really cool because
I'll be there, right? Just continue speaking.
I had, you know, we went to that contest in Fiji, and, you know, to sail and windsurf and try to figure things out at Cloudbreak was a big challenge, you know. And I mean, we had obviously watched, you know, Jason Polikow and Camille, you know, sailing at Cloudbreak before, so we had some idea of what we could do. But it wasn't until you know, actually went out there and felt it, that you got a sense for what windsurfing could be like at a wave that is so world-class like Cloudbreak.
Would that be your favorite spot ever? Hard to tell.
I mean, I definitely want to go back. Like, as as soon as
Although
possible.
it's Portac, so it's not your familiar condition, right?
Yeah, I mean, but after a couple of days of surfing there and windsurfing there and
So
stuff
you
like
don't
that, like
care. It's
I
just whatever.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I totally forgot about it. I mean, I think I would feel it much more if the wave wasn't just so perfect, you
Right.
know. Um, but it is beautiful because I mean, it's got those barreling sections, and you think, what am I gonna do as a windsurfer with a giant barrel? Like, I'm not gonna fit inside of it. Um, I can't really just turn up into it because it's gonna obliterate me. So we watched Camille because Camille had surfed there and sailed there many times already. And he just goes up and he hits it right as it's about to barrel and airs over the barrel and floats that section basically all the way to the channel. Like it's amazing. He turns from a surfer into like a paraglider, and suddenly he's flying over the wave. And I mean, obviously, I'd seen people do big airs and
That's
stuff
the
like that.
winging experience coming up, yeah.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'd seen people do big airs at Hokipa and Cabo Verde and stuff like that, where people get like, caught in the wind and they start to travel, across the wave. But this was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And that really started to make me think like, wow, windsurfing really is two different sports that are smashed together. And depending on what the conditions are like, if it's Okipa, Cabo Verde, Fiji, whatever, the balance is so different between
Right.
surf and
Well,
wind,
this is so interesting. Thank you for this, Bernd. This is an excellent, very interesting point.
Yeah.
Information on the interview. We might get kicked out after 20 minutes, so 4 minutes to go. If we are, because I didn't pay for the premium version of,
Oh,
of one of the softwares. So if we
you're a
get
classic windsurfer.
so if this happens, then I'll send you another link and we do another 20-minute slot. Unfortunately, I mean, that's the way it is. They want a lot of money for the softwares. Anyway, that's super interesting. And
Mhm.
the other point that I had is, so what is your favorite session ever? Although I'm completely, if I have to be honest, if they ask me, I would be in a very hard place to respond. But I'm curious. I'm curious if you have one session and one place that sticks out in your mind.
I had a bunch this year. I had a bunch this year that ranked in that best sessions of my life type of thing, which is I think it's really cool. We had a good year of traveling and going to a lot of cool places. Obviously, after winning Cabo Verde, I was very high. I was feeling so good. I was enjoying windsurfing so much, and I stayed a few days in Cabo Verde after most of the guys from the PWA contest left. And I was just hanging out with Josh Angulo there and exploring some of the spots on the island outside of Punta Preta that are super fun to sail. And yeah, we went to a couple of spots on a pretty big swell.
Beyond the Monteleon, Trust Monteleon, as Josh says, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
secret stuff up there. Yeah. So
Yeah,
was it
exactly.
good? You got
I surfed. Yeah, I sailed a place that was, logo to mast high. It was called Alibaba.
Alibaba, yeah.
And you can actually find some pretty cool videos of Traversa sailing out there.
Yeah.
But that
if I
had to
can
be one of
comment
the.
on this, you can find some videos of Traversa sailing pretty much anywhere. So.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm always jealous of Thomas and seeing like
Thomas is
where he's
insane. I
going.
mean, have you seen the
Yeah,
last video from is it France? Is insane. He's actually is
it's
doing a lot for the sport. I mean, these videos are really
yeah.
top-notch quality. He has a
Oh yeah.
production. He has a production setup that looks like Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really liked his videos that he did. Like I guess it was a couple months ago now, where he was trying out some of his old boards from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Like all those cool like
Yeah.
taboo twin fins and single fins and stuff like that he was using. Stuff like that gets me super excited for windsurfing because we're stuck in the present moment with quads, and that's what is perfect right now. But there have been so many cool designs and boards, and I feel like I would love to try, at least a windsurf board from every windsurfing era just to see
Right.
what it was like.
Yeah, you'd be disappointed. I can tell you. I mean, we did progress.
Yeah.
We did progress. I mean, I have a few boards from like 20 years ago, and
Hmm.
sometimes on flat water, on flat days, I try them out, and
Yeah.
you go, okay, was this it? Was this really it? It's
No, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's hard to get them going. No,
I have a,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have a Mike Waltz Sailboards Maui board from
Oh, seriously? From the 80s?
yeah, from 1987, I think it is. And I take that out of keep it once in a while. And
Does it
it's
work?
a wild. Oh, it's wild to sail. It's so funny because like it's so much more front-footed than any other windsurf board that I
They're
have.
super short, no? They're 230, but the
Oh my
mast on the
gosh.
yeah, yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah, yeah. So
So
it's like
when you lose the plane, they start dive, right?
I'm always purling. Like it's crazy. Every time I go up and try to make a snap on the top of the wave, I go over the falls. But if I change my turn a little bit, then I can kind of get the feeling. And then what's really cool is like I'll watch video back and I'll be like, oh my God, that's how they were sailing in the 80s.
Right.
Like now I get it when I watch people's videos from
Yeah.
the 80s, I'm like, oh, okay, so
Yeah, there's a
that's
video of a Aloha Classic 1987 I put back up on the site.
yep.
It was super interesting to watch. There's
Hmm.
Cesare Cantagalli doing his chisel. But
Yeah.
I never realized that at the very far end of the video, Robin Ash puts up a forward
Hmm.
and he lands it perfectly clean. And that competition went down in history for the chisel, but but the forward was
Yeah.
already there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Right?
Well, that's the thing is like people remember stuff so differently than even than it happened.
Yeah.
you know and we have in windsurfing not too much history that lives through the sport.
Right.
I feel like so much of that history from what was the glory years or the mecca of windsurfing, we don't have too much connection to that anymore. At least I don't feel that way because I was
Right.
young, and watching all of these windsurfers from the 90s, just kind of basically starting to retire. And I never got the chance to really ask them in person, what windsurfing was like for them. Um, and I would love to reconnect with that because I feel like it would make a big difference for my sailing and my passion for sailing in the next 10 years.
Right. Part of the idea behind isurf is that I have a huge photographic and video memory of the
Mm,
last 30 years, and part of that is just remembering. And I can tell you, I spend evenings sometimes watching old videos and old pictures of my friends sailing. It
mm,
it's incredible. I mean, it gives you,
yeah,
yeah, you reconnect, you reconnect to your old
exactly.
self, to your old
Yeah.
experiences, and you relive, you live again this old experience. I got very emotional. I mean, I watched a video
Hmm.
from Mauritius from like 15 years ago, and of course,
Hmm.
the people who were in the video, they're not in my life anymore, right? Not all of
Mm,
them, at least. So it gets emotional, no? And it's
yeah.
interesting. So it's one good thing about doing all this video stuff, which is so time consuming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I can tell you, I went to South Africa, and there was this
Mm,
super session in Eland's Bay. It was super big, and I stayed
mm,
out because I saw that it was history. It was like
mm,
double mast, and so I did the pictures, I did the videos. By the
mm.
time I finished, it wasn't just as good as it was at the beginning. So sometimes
Yeah.
it gets a little tricky to decide. Okay, I'll
Mm,
be the photographer, I'll be the sailor.
yeah. No, I
Um,
was thinking the same thing. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing the other day at Hokiba because I wanted to swim out with my housing, but I wanted to sail more.
right. So you know what I mean. Now, the
Hmm.
other thing I wanted to ask you, I mean, there's so many things, and but one thing is about asymmetrical that they're coming back up this year. What do you think about those boards? Have you tried any, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think they're wonderful. It's really cool to see people experimenting. Um, I think that, you know, it, so many designs in windsurfing at this point are just small variations, you know, and it could go a lot bigger. And I would love to see asymmetrical noses along with asymmetrical tails.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that
So
right now,
short outline at the front.
yeah, right now it's like you've got basically a board that has the same nose, and then just at the tail, it's just like slightly off, right?
Okay.
So maybe your tail is longer on the bottom turn side and shorter on the top turn side. But it's like, if you look at surfing, for example, like surfing's got these amazing boards that have not just asymmetrical tails, but asymmetrical noses as well.
Right.
So that the whole outline of the board is actually shifted this way. So your bottom turn side and your top turn side aren't just different lengths, but they're actually in different positions,
Right.
And yeah, I think that it could go.
So like a
I think
bit
that
like
it
a
could go a
can
lot bigger.
opener, like a shape where the one side has it all and the other side is a bit shorter. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have an old Angulo can opener outside my house that I'm currently re-inserting the foot straps in so
All
that I
right.
can use it this winter.
Okay. So you are into the legacy movement. I've got a friend over here, Lorenzo. Ciao.
Yeah.
That is always playing around with old stuff. He goes on a windsurfer and then whenever he finds these very old sails like I don't know, a Neil Pride from 1987 or an Etsy sail, one of the first Etsy, a North Etsy, you remember, before they became Etsy by themselves. And he goes mad, and he takes them at the beach, and it's a lot of fun. Anyway, how about jumping in competitions? For a while, jumping wasn't considered. Now this year it was back into the competition, right? How does that plays out? Going back to your consideration that it can be wind and it can be wave, and that's definitely wind and power. It's a totally different. It's a totally different attitude to the sport. Now I'm more to the energetic side. Do you think it ties well? It ties in well with wave sailing, or I mean, what's your take?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the kind of wave sailing that I grew up watching obviously was at Hokipa. And I mean, I feel like people used to jump so much more at Hokipa. And that probably was because, we had so many pros that were coming over for the winter season and the spring season, the photo shoot season, not only to get their videos and their pictures and stuff like that, but to train for the tour for the whole year. I mean, I remember when Cowley would come over and, with Brazinho and Ricardo, and the three of them would sail at Hokipa, in the morning, and then they would go to Waihu in the afternoon and surf onshore waves and train there. And then they would go to Kanaha and train out there in the evening, doing onshore wave sailing. And like, they would fit all of these different pieces of windsurfing into like one day, and then like watching the windsurfing movie, like the windsurfing movie obviously inspired me. I was like 10 years old when that thing came out. And, I was just as excited to watch, Levi doing like a fat wave 360 on a mast high wave as there was to see him do one of those back loops where he was like basically level with the helicopter as they were filming him, or the windsurfing movie too, when Khalid Saidi did the push loop forward at Secrets. I mean, like, I sail there every day, and so I was super excited to see stuff like that. And I've always been inspired by wave riding, jumping, and then where I feel like they kind of come together in like the freestyle wave and stuff like that.
Have you ever been a freestyler, like a pure freestyle? Have you ever owned the freestyle board?
Yeah, when I was a kid, we had flat summers. Every year I would be at home, kind of just like outside of Kanaha on my Starboard flare. It was like a Pro Kids flare, and that was like a full-on freestyle board, and I would ride that all day long for hours trying freestyle moves. And I got away from that because I started competing in wave sailing, and I was like, I'm a wave sailor. And now over the last couple of years, I feel like I've kind of like reconnected with the love of freestyle. And it's actually funny, like whenever I'm waiting
is it not uncool to be a freestyler on Maui? Is it not uncool? I mean,
I think it was. Like, I don't know anybody who sailed at Hokipa and did freestyle.
Right.
It was kind of like either or.
Right.
And then for me, I was like, well, there's so many opportunities to do cool freestyle moves at Hokipa, and I want to do that.
Right.
And the first time like that I experimented with that was just doing a spock on the wave right before my wave ride.
Right.
And I loved doing that because you're on this big swell and there's all this anticipation for how you're going to ride it.
That's Josh Stone basically, right? And
Yeah,
his brother. Do you
exactly.
remember his brother? His brother
Hmm.
used to do Spocks at Dokeep. I remember that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's the thing is like there was an era of windsurfing and Hokipo when there was overall impression. And it wasn't just about wave riding and it wasn't just about jumping. It was about the whole session put together, you know?
Right.
So yeah, so I love doing freestyle. I love doing like shakas and shove-its on the outside while I'm waiting for like swells to come in. And it's really cool. Like my friends and I will all do it, like Morgan Loro and Antoine Martin. Like if we're waiting for sets, we're not just sitting on the outside. Like we're planing past each other, trying to do like clue first switch stance flakas and trying to do konos and stuff like
Oh,
that. Like,
seriously? Oh, so you are
yeah,
into
like,
Kanos. That's
oh
good
yeah,
to
for sure.
hear. Okay.
Yeah. And like,
People will love this. I mean, because that's all we can do here, freestyle.
yeah, yeah, no, I mean that, and that's the thing is like we have so much energy and we have to wait for sets.
Right.
So it's like we enjoy windsurfing regardless of what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's not just about waves.
So you can attempt a Kano on a wakeboard. This is what you're telling me, right?
You can attempt it, you can't do it very successfully. But
Okay,
that's
but
the
you can
thing
still
is like,
try. You can try,
yeah, you can
which is
still
all we
try.
need to know, right?
Hmm. Yeah, Morgan's best freestyle move, in my opinion, he's got a lot of good ones, but I think the best one is when he does his Weimaroos, which I don't know many people that can do like a really
It's a
sick.
360 on flat water, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he basically does like a perfect lay down carving jibe, and then just like
And then
jumps
pops
up in the
up,
air.
jumps.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the backwind the backwind stuff that they came out in the last few years, it's just amazing. You spring up in
Mm.
the air like you're exploding or something. Yeah,
Oh, it's
because you're
amazing.
backwinded and then you push on the sail and boom,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get a lot of energy.
I especially love watching Balls Mueller.
Yeah,
He's so sick. I mean, it's
it's
crazy some of the
completely
stuff that
sick.
he's done.
It's sick.
So yeah,
And
if
but
there's a windsurfer that
luckily he
inspires
moved
me.
on to winging, so we don't need to
Well, the stuff that he's doing
we don't
winging
need
is
to be
insane.
concerned anymore. He's a winger now, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure. Well, they always say that kind of stuff. They said that kind of stuff about me too when I started stand-up paddling and competing on the tour.
Right,
You
that's
know,
exactly where I was gonna lead you a bit on your stand-up paddling career and your
hmm
results and everything. How did you move into stand-up paddling? And what interested me in particular compared to surfing? Why did you be? Why wouldn't you go into plain surfing and you
mm.
stand-up paddling instead?
Social reasons, just people that were in my life. When I started stand-up paddling, I was 11, and I started with Kai Lenny, and we would every summer do two downwinders from Ho'okipa down to Kanaha, um, like two a day for weeks and weeks on end, and it was just playful. It was fun. And as the winter seasons would come by, we would keep our boards and we would start, playing around in the surf. And pretty soon, Nash started to kind of see, that this was going to be a sport, that this was going to be something that people wanted to do. So they gave us, these cool surfboards to play with that were, just oversized surfboards blown up to be cool stand-up boards.
Right.
And yeah, I made so many friends paddleboarding. And that was the thing is like when I was windsurfing, there weren't that many people that I knew that were my age, you know? And like even just in general, like windsurfers are pretty antisocial people. Like, it's an antisocial sport. You're doing it by yourself. It's like unless you want to
Well,
like
is
shout at somebody, you can be like,
Well, it is
"Hey."
true. At the same time, we have some of the deepest friendships, possible because you travel. You basically very seldom travel alone. So at least you have an associate. You have a buddy.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. No, there's a
Sometimes
there's
you
an
have more than
intimate.
one, and you rotate
Yeah.
among the different. And those are
You,
very deep
you
friendships. Don't you agree? I mean, like
yeah, you kind of like run into people while you're traveling. It's like people are sort of all kind of going in different directions, and then suddenly meet up in the same spot, and you're like, oh, there's you, you know.
That's how I got to meet Thomas Traversa. I was in Madagascar, and I said, "This is incredible that I meet the world champion." And then I thought about it.
Yeah.
Who else is going to be in the southern tip of Madagascar, if not the world champion of windsurfing? I mean, this is how crazy I am.
Yeah.
But it was excellent. And when you start traveling, I mean, there's not so many places. It's always the same places around the same time of the year. So basically, you bump into each other, and that's great because you build a community.
I like to think of windsurfers as like migratory birds. You know, it's like they're all flying to the same places at the same time because the weather is perfect at that time of year.
For a long time, I was assuming that Hawaii would be good, most of the year, because that's the way it was marketed. And then I realized it's a few weeks, like the top conditions we're talking about here now. It's a few weeks in spring, and it's a few weeks in autumn, because you have to align the swell and the wind and everything else. So it's just not unlike any other place. Mauritius also is a very nice place. It can be good throughout the Mauritian summer, but it's particularly good during 2 months, no? And if you take the hardest part of the winter, then you're not going to have fun because the waves are not so clean and so on and so on. So actually, it's a window that keeps moving around the world, different months, different places. And that's how we get to meet, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a wonderful way to travel.
Yeah. It requires a lot of time and a bit of money, but unfortunately, that's true for most things in life, right?
Yeah.
So we got 3 minutes to go before the software kicks us out.
Kills us.
What else? Who are the windsurfers you look up to? When you and inspire your wave sailing or your sailing in general?
Well, I've had a lot over the course of time. I was talking earlier about Balls because he's pretty sick, and I still think he's sick, even though he's windsurfing probably more than he's windsurfing now.
He's falling,
but we don't know that. I mean, he's just posting a lot of windsurfing stuff. Maybe he's like windsurfing every day, but when I was growing up on Maui, the person that inspired me the most was Mark Angulo. It was his creativity on the water. It was his bravery. He was, always going the biggest out of anybody else, even though he was, already at the time that I was windsurfing, one of the older guys windsurfing there. And just his approach to life. And I had the opportunity to work with him on boards in his shop and stuff like that, and a lot of the opinions that I have about sailing and competition and stuff like that came from Mark, and learning from his experiences and the things that he encountered while he was sailing professionally and stuff like that. And I think that surfing is in so many ways.
Bernd, let me tell you this: we have less than a minute. What do? We end this one and we do another one, and we do a bit of Italian. Is that okay to you?
Yeah, sounds good.
So I don't need to thank you, because this is just part one of a two-part interview, and we'll be back in a minute. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thanks for part one.
Thank you.